As with any language, whether it's for computers or humans, a key to really grasping the power behind JavaScript is understanding its syntax. Luckily, it's not that very complicated. This course will walk you through the basics of JavaScript syntax with the goal of becoming conversant in the language. We'll start with variables, learning how to declare and assign them, and then running through the main types of data JavaScript uses and how we can use them. We'll then move on to exploring operators, both arithmetic and logical, and seeing how conditionals work and getting a solid feel for how to use loops. Finally, we'll dive into understanding functions and how they not only fit into JavaScript, but how they're a little different from functions in other programming languages. Once you finish this course, you'll be off to a good start understanding JavaScript and be able to read a lot of what is out there, as well as begin to write your own to make websites or apps. This course doesn't really have a lot of prerequisites. We'll be coming at this from a web perspective for the most part. So mainly I assume that you've used the internet for a while and that you have a pretty solid grasp of how web browsers work. There will be a couple of very small mentions of HTML, but prior experience with it, it's not necessary. So beyond that, you really don't need much. We also have files for this course that include everything you need to follow along. Because this course is about learning how to read JavaScript as well as write it, the files are mostly in the form of transcripts of what you'll see, as well as some of the examples for copying and pasting. There are folders for each chapter and each video containing anything you need to try that you have seen. You can open these, read through them, and go through it at your own pace. Let's get started. We're going to be going over syntax of JavaScript. This is not going to be a complete coverage of every single element of JavaScript syntax because the goal here is to allow you to be conversant in JavaScript. Just like any other spoken language, you won't be totally fluent in a matter of a few hours, but you will be able to read code like this, which has some comments and some actual functionality, and you'll be able to make sense of it all. You'll understand control structures, you'll understand the different kinds of data types that are available, and you'll also understand how to use variables. Comments in white space, and generally you'll have a solid understanding of comments in white space and understanding how the language is put together, even enough to start working with your own. Enough that you can start working with it on your own. That's the goal, not perfect fluency, but to become conversant. Programming languages are a lot like human spoken languages. You need to learn the grammar in order to be able to use it, but that's not enough to become totally fluent. You need to put in a lot of time reading the language, writing the language, and generally it's whatever the way you want to use it, right? But with human spoken languages, of course, you could just simply speak with your voice and get a lot of use from it that way. But with JavaScript, you need to be able to read and write it. And after going through this course, you should be able to read and write code and begin to do whatever you need to do with using JavaScript. So let's begin. Programming languages go through revisions over time, just like apps. In JavaScript, the feature additions are what people tend to get excited about, and that's no surprise there. Let's briefly talk about versions of JavaScript that you'll hear about. Through JavaScript, it's the language most commonly used name. The body that maintains its standards is ECMA International. So versions are named that accordingly. So we have ECMA Script 5, or what we call ES5, is the version that runs on all modern web browsers, really since 2012 or so. There are older versions of this, of course, but this one is generally like the baseline. And one of the most people mean when they're talking about JavaScript is ES5. So in this course, we'll be talking about ES5. The other most commonly discussed version is the one after ES5, which is sometimes called ES6, but officially is called ECMA Script 2015. There are a lot of new features in this version, and browser support is pretty good, but not good enough that web developers can use it directly in web browsers safely. And as you may guess, there are newer versions as well, finalized pretty much every year. And they add a lot more features and make the language feel new and shiny all over again. But for the most part, ES5 and ES6 still make up, the lion's share of JavaScript in its common use. If you want to use, features of newer versions of JavaScript without like sacrificing compatibility, there's a lot of tools existing out there that will take the newer, less compatible JavaScript and convert it into ES5 so it can run on most of the web browsers or whatever, you're targeting. The most popular is called Babel, which is available at babeljs.io. So you can definitely take a look at that. But we're just getting our feet wet here, so we'll be sticking with ES5. All subsequent versions add on after that. So what you'll be learning here is still useful and foundational, and you won't have to worry about compatibility or the need for extra tools at all.